Hi, my name is Jayme Hernandez, founder of Nurture Yoga Therapy. So welcome to your free training called Kosha Yoga Meditation. So Kosha is a Sanskrit word for the layers of ourself. Or in other words, the way I like to describe it is the 6 bodies of human growth. The first body being the physical body, the second body being the mental body, the third body being the energy body, the fourth body being the bliss body or love body, the fifth body being the body of wisdom, and the last the sixth body being the body of life. And so I want to just kind of take you through those different bodies within a very simple posture called sitting. Now, we also, in the training, will learn the 6 ways to align the mind, body, and spirit through alignments, through the mind, through the breath, through massage, through posture and movement, and through energy. And so the very first place that we could begin is in alignment of the skeleton structure. Because we can do all of the sort of movements and postures we like, but if the skeleton structure is aligned in a certain way, we actually can begin to develop injury, or sometimes it just creates small sensitivities. And over time, if we continue to reuse, misuse, or overuse the body in a certain way, then it can lead towards pain or injury. So in sitting, very fundamentally, I always like to start from the bottom to the top. And we always can begin with what's touching the floor. So our feet, we tend to sometimes in meditation, we tend to kind of overextend the outside of the ankle. And so instead of doing that, let your ankle relax, and you can either have your toes pointing forward, or if you want, you can also flex your feet, both feet. So you can choose which one feels good for you. You also can put blocks underneath your legs. And basically the rule of thumb is having the hips higher than the knees. So it doesn't matter how much you put underneath you, just put enough so that your knees are able to relax. So another rule is to always bring the floor to you instead of trying to push your body down towards the floor. Another place we can look, there's many places we can look, but because I don't want to take too much time, I want to get into the meditation, is to also look at the pelvis. Now, sometimes the pelvis can be too much tucked underneath, and you'll know that if your back is kind of round and you feel sort of more of a compression here in the belly and the breath. Or if you're a little too much forward, your chest is sticking forward and there's a bit of tension in the back. So you always want to find somewhere in between. And if you're not sure, then just go back and forth. So you tuck your tailbone underneath and you tilt your pelvis forward, and try to find somewhere in between where you can not necessarily kind of collapse, but actually press your sitting bones down. And as you press your sitting bones down, this helps you stabilize the top and lengthen your spine. Now, another place we want to look at is what's happening in the head, because the head and the shoulders are connected. So if I move my head, my shoulders will naturally move. And the shoulders just want to hang out. So one way of letting them just hang out, instead of kind of going like this, which is not necessarily feasible, drawing the elbows back like that, it's actually more feasible over long term to have the head right on top of the pelvis. So the head is lengthening, but the shoulders are relaxing. The sitting bones are pressing into the ground, but the breath is relaxing. Right? So there's always sort of 2 things happening in the body, or many things happening, where there's a length, but at the same time, the skeleton structure is hanging out in the tissues. Now, once we sort of have this skeleton in somewhat of an alignment, Now we can actually allow the breath to breathe a little bit more fully, because here the diaphragm is going to be compressed, and here it's going to be more in the front and less in the back. Okay? So the breath is something that pretty much touches all systems in the body. And one of the things that we need to understand is that the breath is breathing us, right? So we want to just watch this thing that keeps us alive. Every time we breathe, we recognize that we are alive. And every time we exhale, we recognize that we can relax, right? The more we can relax, the more we're able to perceive not just the physical body. The next layer would be the mind, right? In yoga, the mind holds the body. So we want to know what we're doing with the mind, right? And often the mind will be somewhere in the future, or somewhere in the past, or a little bit all over the place, or in some kind of thought, or on some kind of concept, or some kind of conceptualization of what's happening. So we need to really watch this, because that's pretty much going to be the way we see the world. And everybody who's listening right now are receiving this information through a certain mental lens, right? So it's important for us to notice what is that mental lens, because everyone has different mental lenses. And just like in the body, we have habits of the way we sit in our posture. In the mind, we have certain habits. So it's important to start to watch, what's going on in the mind, right? And so our anchoring points of attention can be the physical body that is kind of moving into alignment, but at the same time helping us relax. And the breath that continues. Right? It's not like a black and white logical in-out. It actually continues to move in the body, and it continues to move. So we can allow the mind to not be this one-pointed, very strict focus, but a continuation of watching and feeling the breath. Right? And usually when we practice meditation, we close our eyes, because it's a different part of the nervous system that is working. When your eyes are open, your eyes are connected to your brain and your nervous system. So it's continually adapting to what's happening, or going by some kind of memory, right? So whatever you see in front of you, your computer, blah, 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 your mind is going to be a little bit more conceptualizing. And so what we want to start to shift in meditation is moving from the concept or the idea of meditation into the actual experience. And so how we do that is through feeling. Okay, so we're going to practice now. Once you're in a comfortable place, you could even be sitting on a chair. Okay, and we can close our eyes. And sometimes you'll notice in meditation, you tend to kind of collapse and relax and fall asleep. Or you're really stiff and you're really trying to focus and meditate. And really it's somewhere in between, where you are intentionally lengthening the spine, pressing through the sitting bones and lifting through the crown of the head. And at this exhale, we're letting our shoulders relax around the lengthening spine. And instead of trying to make the breath happen, breathe and just allow it to happen. There's an expansion when you breathe in. And on the exhale, there's a release and the relax. And this is happening in all human bodies, so just notice if you can feel that. The breath that expands you, keeps you alive. And this breath that helps you to relax. So one technique is to move the mind within the body. As you breathe in, you can feel your head and the lengthening of the crown of the head. And as you breathe out, feel the shoulders relax, the rib cage relax, the belly relax. And again, it's a balance between intentionally breathing and following the breath, and intentionally letting yourself relax. Now, as you begin to breathe, you might notice you breathe more in the front. So see if you can also breathe into the back. Every time you exhale, see if you can let your shoulders relax. So as you begin to relax the nervous system, you'll start to notice your mind. And your mind might be really busy, it might be really focusing, it might be kind of distracted, might be irritated, okay? Any number of things can be happening, but most likely the thing that is happening is what you kind of usually go to, what you usually do in the mind. So it's important to watch that. So as we watch ourselves, what will tend to happen is we tend to judge, tend to analyze. But instead of judging and analyzing, allow yourself just to watch almost from a place of curiosity. Watch from a place where, oh, that's interesting. More gentle with ourselves. Right? So remember how the mind holds the body, right? Is a reflection of what's happening in the mind, and it also will affect the way the body is being held. Is there a lot of tension? Is it kind of just not really trying? Right? So with the mind attentive to the continuation of movement in the breath and the continuation of the movement downward, we start to integrate the mind into the body. And every time you breathe, I want you to feel movement. Every time you exhale, let yourself relax, follow the breath all the way out. All the way out. Inhaling here. Exhaling, relaxing, and your breath might be a different rhythm than mine. What's most important is to stay with the breath in, to stay with the breath out. Now, for some of us, working with energy is just not really in part of our practice. But we can begin to integrate that part of ourselves. And the way we work with energy is usually through feeling, through imagining or visualizing, right? And sometimes people even see or hear. So it's quite subtle, the energy body. And that's why it's important to be able to focus the mind. So if we're going to work with energy, the mind has to first be able to perceive it from that clear place, not from all of these concepts or ideas, but really just from a place of focus versus force or trying to make something happen. So let yourself just be open to this part of the meditation. And the same thing, we can close our eyes. And we can begin to visualize just a white light from above our head, like a tunnel moving downward into the crown of the head. And allow yourself to feel and take your time to move that white light through the whole entire body. Try to go from feeling versus thinking. And allow that white light to move all the way down. Take your time. All the way down, 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 into the ground. So this is a great way just to kind of clear and just get neutral about what's going on in the body, what's going on in the mind. And then another way that we can sort of reinforce our force field is to choose what energy do we want to vibrate in, right? So definitely there's a difference, right? If somebody is, let's say, depressed or angry, it feels different. If you're sitting beside them, it feels different. And that's not a logical thing, it's a feeling. Okay, so it's important, just like when you choose your posture, just like when you choose what you're going to do with your mind, it's important to also know what you're going to be doing with your energy, right? Because it's going to affect everything within you and around you, right? So if you walk into a room and you feel good, you're going to be affecting the people around you. And if you walk into a room and you feel bad, not that it's wrong, that people are angry, let's say, or irritated, people are going to feel that whether they observe it or not. Okay, so take a moment again to close your eyes. Once sort of there's a clearing, you can choose the energy of love or move into the bliss body or the love body. Okay, it's always here, this thing called love. It's not like we have to make it happen or look for it. So take a moment now from the same place of that white tunnel from the top of your head that's moving downward. Imagine it going through the crown, this energy of love. And use whatever comes to your mind, whatever image, whatever feeling. And again, bring it downward. And bring it into the heart and let it radiate around the heart and expand into the body and expand into your energetic field, which is about the width of your hands. Okay, your auric field is all around you, and you can imagine that you're radiating from the center of the heart and expanding your energetic field and establishing, reinforcing that force field around you. Below you, around the sides, around the back, around the top. So this is where we need to be a little bit courageous, because sometimes when we find that place where it feels blissful, the mind gets scared. It's not used to this, or it continues to try and conceptualize. But what if you try to go more from a place of feeling and just feel this energetic field within and around you, or at least start to imagine it. Right? Everything starts in your mind. And then once you're there, have the courage to sit and stay there. And with focus and attention, what's going to happen is there's going to be some moments where it feels quiet. Okay, so that may or may not be happening for you. But in those moments are the moments of wisdom. We don't have to kind of overthink really our life if we first just begin to learn how to sit and find that place of clarity that place of quiet, all of the answers that we're looking for are in that place. It's because the mind is just so used to being so busy. So if we are presented with a choice, the mind is so busy thinking about the future, thinking about the past, or a little bit distracted that it can't really make a decision. But if we practice clearing the mind, then it's very easy when something is presented in front of us, because we don't have all of those lenses. It's just yes or no, right? Or let me just sit with it a little bit more, right? And I think for most of us, we're a little bit scared to do that because we're so used to doing it in the other way, where we're just thinking about it a lot, or we're working really hard, or we're trying really hard. And this very simple answer sometimes is to simply sit with yourself, right? So learning how to sit with yourself as a yoga practitioner or a therapist or a teacher, I think is fundamental, right? How could we sit with somebody else or teach somebody else if we're not necessarily so clear about how we perceive our own self and how we perceive the person in front of us? Right? So we're all going to have ways and perceptions and the way we see the world, but it's important for us to actually be able to see that. Otherwise, we may start to identify with some kind of thought or idea without actually seeing or hearing yourself or the person in front of you. So that place where we begin to be a little bit more quiet also connects us to life itself. Now this, again, it can't be philosophized or really go into some technique. It's really the practice of sitting. The practice of sitting with yourself through all the bodies, right? So we have to kind of find that alignment so we can find comfort. We have to find the steadiness of the mind so that we can see and perceive our energetic field, which pretty much affects everyone and everything. And if you don't think it does, just sit next to somebody who is, angry, and you'll right away notice it's a certain vibration. And sit next to somebody like a child who's just open and curious and sees the world in wonderment, and you'll right away start to feel the difference. And so when we are able to sit just in quiet, or at least watch the mind, and all of a sudden some things start to happen where we kind of fall a little bit into a very relaxed place in our body and a very clear place in our mind, and an energy field that is a little bit more expansive versus contracted, you may experience that connection with life itself. And it's not like this is a special enlightened, ability. We've had this since we were born. When you were a baby, you were born experiencing. You didn't think, you didn't say what you like, what you dislike. You were simply experiencing everything. All your emotions, all your feelings about your environment, right? And it was all felt, right? So we have this capacity, we're born with it, right? So if these kind of concepts seem sort of far out there, what we need to do is practice, okay? And just like if we were to kind of do 200 push-ups, you can do it, but it kind of takes time, right? So I invite you to understand that this is a practice, right? We're not looking for perfection, but at the same time, it's really exciting when we start to kind of notice, oh, that little adjustment in my body created less pain in the shoulders or the neck. Oh, okay, the focus of my mind gave me a little bit more space to kind of be more creative and decisive. Oh, that energetic field, okay, that helps me kind of decide how I'm going to feel, right? And affect that, truly affect that, and affect other people, right? And then when we live in that bliss body, we begin to kind of go into it a little bit more and more. Love has no words, but the actions are very clear, right? So we don't have to think about our actions. We just do based on a place of love or courage. Okay, it's very direct. It's very spontaneous. And that knowledge that you're searching for, yes, you will start to kind of read and observe and practice, but it's always going to be a parallel between your outside world and what you receive and your inside world. And if your inside world is kind of matching the kind of knowledge that naturally comes, then that's kind of one way of sort of helping you see. Like if many people you know meditate, or you've listened to many different teachers, there's always kind of like a thread. And it depends also where they're really developing their skill. Is it in the physical body? Is it in the mind? Is it in their energetic field? Are they already in the bliss body and they just seemingly just act from that place of courage? So it depends where the teacher is at. Is there just a natural tendency for wisdom that is not an effort, right? And is there this natural curiosity, like a child, just curious about life, right? So there was just a small sample of the 6 bodies of human growth. And if you're interested in just working more with this, we can begin to see it more in the training, very specific postures. We can begin to see it in a way of working with it in ourselves, and at the same time refining our ability to see the skeleton structure. And we didn't talk about it today, but to see the fascial matrix. And then when you can do that, you can pretty much adjust any posture, right? And also working in the mind, right? When your mind is clear, you're able to really see everything with clarity, because you've been through those, what I call layers of the mind, where you see certain layers, and you can help other people see those layers, right? Because sometimes those layers can be helpful, and sometimes actually they're keeping us in a little bit of a box, you know? And working with energy, most of us don't understand that sometimes we're leaking energy, or sometimes we are maintaining it, or we can also increase it. And that's kind of pretty much what most people want. They want to live a life where they feel good most of the time. And even when life is difficult, or there's adversity, can we stay grounded in that adversity? Because that also is a reality of life. You know, there are times where it's very difficult and times where it's easeful. And how can we create all of these resources and tools to help us stay grounded in our experience? So if you enjoyed this meditation, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. And I'd be very happy to answer any kind of questions you have about yoga, about meditation, about the physical body, about the mental body, about the energy body, about this thing, you know, that we call love, wisdom, or, you know, life. And not that I have all the answers, but sometimes when you've been observing for a while, sometimes you kind of notice similar patterns in your own life and the life of other human beings. So, you know, you take the time to observe, and that's another place where you're going to notice and find wisdom. So this training is really to give you the tools, right, to develop your own way, your own path towards a place of clarity, a place where natural wisdom occurs, and a place where you can live in that place of love. and very tangible tools if you're going to be teaching in a group setting where you can really see bodies from a more refined eye, and see what's happening in the skeleton structure, see what's happening in the facial matrix, see what's happening in the breath, even see what's happening in the mind. And then from there, learn how to demonstrate, learn how to use your voice, use your body to demonstrate a way of moving with more ease, and also using your hands so that you can, let's say if somebody needs more tactile way of learning, we can actually use our hands to guide the skeleton structure or the facial matrix. Right? We can use our voice and our attention to guide the mind back into the body. We can use our ability to relax to teach people how to use the breath. Right? And all of this it moves into posture and movement. So posture and movement is the way we present yoga often in the West. But at the same time, because you know the fundamentals, you can pretty much teach anybody. People who are very, let's say, athletic, or people who can hardly move, or people who may have a disease or emotional imbalance or energetic imbalance. So the teacher training offers you a wide variety of tools to work with who's sitting in front of you, not necessarily such a rigid way of teaching where it has to be only the athletic people that are in front of you, or people who just meditate. It can be a practice where you can really sit in front of a group and from your own resources and tools give a class that is appropriate and that adapts to the people in front of you. And at the same time, your own personal practice will be the foundation, right? So I always say the depth of your practice, the depth of your teaching, the depth of your practice equals the depth of your teaching, right? So that's it for today. I'm going to be releasing more videos and trainings just for you to get a feel of this thing called Kosha Yoga. And that's it. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I'd be happy to hear from you. And thank you very much today for your practice. Thanks.